أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. My brothers and sisters, on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will conduct something, and that happening, Allah has drawn almost a picture in front of us so that we can imagine what it's going to be like over there. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will separate people into two parties. And to one party, it will be told before this ayah, وَامْتَازُوا الْيَوْمَ أَيُّهَا الْمُجْرِمُونَ, O you criminals, get apart. Mujrim, O you criminals, get apart from the believers. Get aside from the believers. You don't belong with them. And then he addresses those criminals. He says, didn't we ask you, didn't we take this commitment from you, O children of Adam? Didn't I tell you this, that you will not worship shaitan? He is your open enemy, and you will worship Allah alone. Worship me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And this is the straight path. He misled many of you. Did you have no sense? Don't you realize? And then he says, this is the fire of hell before you now that you were warned about. Meaning prophets of Allah came, messengers of Allah came, and they told them that if you don't follow this straight path and you worship shaitan, you will end up in this place. And today you will be thrown in this hellfire. إِصْلَوْهَا الْيَوْمَ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْفُرُونَ, for your denial of this reality that is in front of your eyes today. Now, my brothers and sisters, I don't know if you remember this or not. I think maybe a year ago, I gave a complete khutbah on this concept of ibadah of shaitan. What is this worship of shaitan? Yes, it was March of 2015. If you ask anybody today, do you worship shaitan, you worship devil, Satan, Lucifer, it will tell you no. Except for that, minority, they're called devil worshippers. They have a, church with double cross, 666 church. Except that group, that's a, rare thing in America. Freedom of religion, worship whatever you want. But aside from that, if you ask most people, whether they're believers or non-believers, that you're worshiping shaitan, if you worship shaitan, he'll tell you you're crazy. I don't worship shaitan. Well, there's something that we need to understand here, is that there's a main theme of these ayat, which is very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that there are only two people, two groups. One, those who worship God, and those who worship non-God, or non-gods, or many gods, or whatever. Who have aliha, other than Allah, other than ilahuna, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or God Almighty. Whether it's any God or non-God, they are in that category. And in reality, people might be worshipping a stone, a rock, an object, a person, a prophet of Allah, a messenger of God, or a wali of Allah. They might be asking him, worshipping him, but in reality, they're all worshipping shaitan. They're all worshipping shaitan because they're not worshipping God. Now, practically, it's following of shaitan. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not asking you, He's not telling you to worship anybody else beside me. Then who are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Who am I listening to if I do that, astaghfirullah? Starting with your own self. Could it be your own hawa? Could it be your own desires as your God? Shaitan is a partner in that too. So, my brothers and sisters, these verses from 60 through 64 of Surah Yasin also highlight something very important. that every Nabi, every Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that came on this earth, that was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by God, the main theme, the main objective of their teachings was centered around, the focal point was Tawheed, worshipping one God. Let's take a quick overview of Quran where several prophets and messengers mentioned in one place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-A'raf about Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, Nuh, Hud, Salih, Lut, Shu'aib. All of them in one place. Every one of them, with the exception of Lut, because he was already preaching to the Muslims, everybody was telling them, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فَقَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ وَإِلَىٰ عَادٍ أَخَاهُمْ هُودًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ وَإِلَىٰ ثَمُودَ أَخَاهُمْ صَالِحًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ وَإِلَىٰ مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ. Every one of them was telling the people worship one God, no other ilah, no other deity, no other sovereign, no other power beside him, only him and him alone. Everyone was telling that. Yet, if you look at the example of Sayyidina Shu'aib alayhi salam, his people, they were committing all kinds of crimes. There were people in these nations who were committing zina, adultery, fornication, gambling, stealing, cheating, killing one another, robberies, all of those problems. But they start with what? Allah first. Tawheed first. Because my brothers and sisters, if this we understood, if we realize this focal point, everything else will become so easy. You cannot go and steal, you cannot go and rob, and you cannot go and oppress someone because you know that there's someone who is above you, that you're being watched by, you're being seen by, you will be answerable to him, you will be held accountable by him. So, and subhanallah, same picture is drawn in Surah Hud as well, that all these nations, when they swayed from this focal point, this central theme of the teachings that Allah's prophets were bringing, they lost their way. And whenever nations swayed, my brothers and sisters, from this focal point, the problems of deviance, they start with smaller things, gradually. Take example of persons, people. First, you start honoring them, which is okay. Then you start erecting monuments for them. Then you start over-glorifying them. Then eventually you start thinking that you will be blessed by them. You start to think that they have something special even after they are gone. And eventually you think that they are everything. You have to go to God through them. Now, speaking example of persons, I'm going to give you two case studies, Christianity and Islam. Or among Christians, what happened? After Isa alayhi salam died, you look at the Bible today, it has four main Gospels. Three of them are closer to Isa alayhi salam's time, not in his time, closer to his time than the fourth one. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they are close to Jesus' time than John. So I'll give you an example here. These are called synoptic gospels. Alhamdulillah, I studied about them in the college. So interestingly, in these three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Isa alayhi salam, his description out of a human nature, for instance, the focus of these three gospels is on his teachings, on taking care of the needy, of the weak, poor. Focus is on establishing kingdom of God, and salvation, which is a very big theme of religions or these faiths, that you go to heaven, you gain salvation, you get forgiveness, paradise, through works, through deeds, helping the poor, sick, and needy. Well, after a century, that gradual change, look what it led to. In John, themes have changed. Jesus is no longer seen as a person with human nature. He's being seen as a divine nature. He's being presented as divine. The focus from kingdom of God has been shifted, that no, actually He's the main king of all kingdom. It's been shifted. Salvation, which was before deeds, a'mal, a'mal salihah, you have to earn this, you have to work hard for it. And then with the mercy of God you will enter heaven. Changes. That no, you have to believe in Him as Son of God, then you enter heaven. So see what happens gradually? Now, come back to Islam, back to future. And I'll give you reference of someone who many of his followers claim that they are his followers, and look what they're doing. This is what he says in his tafsir. Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi, rahmatullah alayh. He says, among us when somebody dies, people make a nice grave for him. Then after that grave, they put flags on this grave. Then they start shrouding it, covering it like a ghulaf of Kaaba. They start honoring it. Eventually people start visiting it, thinking that they will be honored and they will be blessed, not to make dua anymore. But they're going to get some blessings from it. And now, once they start believing into that, they have made these graves of imams and awliyaullah salihin, which we all honor. Ala ra'si, they are our kibar. They become your alihah too. This is a fitna, which today's focus is briefly on this subject, that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I cannot imagine, my brothers and sisters, and no one should imagine that in his last days, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would never ever touch on this subject. So yes, therefore he did. He was so much worried about this, my brothers and sisters, that several occasions Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned it over and over and over about this fitna of graves through which this ummah could enter into shirk, making partnership of God or eventually worshipping shaitan. Excessive warnings by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he forbade us from visiting the graves before. We were not allowed to visit the graves. But now, he said, now I allow you to visit the graves. For what? Two things only, and that's it. These are the only two purposes of visiting the graves. Number one, some places you might take ibrah from. That this guy used to be this big king, he used to do this, he used to do that, he was killing innocent people, like what's happening these days. They are killing our innocent brothers and sisters in all different places in the world. But today he's 6 feet under. Look at his grave. He cannot even help himself. Ibrah, you take heed from it. You take warning that I could be in his place, and I'm going to be there very soon. Second, for the noble ones, for the righteous ones, for the believers, we make dua for them. We make istighfar for them. Or if they don't need our istighfar, some of them, like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we give salam to them. So yes, even the grave, that there is no grave higher or more honorable than grave on this earth, according to all ulama of Islam. Even on that grave, we don't go to seek anything from it. We go there to give something, to give salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you and I tawfiq. Because my brothers and sisters, I will say part of a bay'ah very briefly from one of the late companions, Abu Sufyan ibn al-Harith radiallahu anhu. He's not the other Abu Sufyan who was the leader of the Quraysh. He's one of the different Abu Sufyan, second famous Abu Sufyan. When Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha was crying, he was telling her to be patient, and in the end he said, after the reminder of patience, he told her, فَقَبْرُ أَبِيكِ سَيِّدِ كُلِّ قَبْرٍ وَفِيهِ سَيِّدُ النَّاسِ الرَّسُولِ sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The grave of your father is the master of all the graves that exist or will ever exist. Because in it is the master of all the mankind, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the leader of all the mankind. So my brothers and sisters, by talking about graves, we're not disrespecting or dishonoring any graves for that matter, and especially Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Neither he is suggesting that. Because in his last khutbahs he talked a lot about it. But before I mention to you, I'll give you another beautiful qawl of Imam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah rahimahullah, where he crossed some big lines that many scholars were shocked. This is to those who say that we are muwahideen, we follow the manhaj of Ibn al-Qayyim. Look how Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, honors the grave of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we have some people today, another extreme, who said, why do you have to go to the grave of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Astaghfirullah. This is not Tawheed. Tawheed doesn't mean that you dishonor them, you disrespect them. Look at how Imam Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, rahimahullah, honored the grave of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I got it from two places. Sayyid Abu Bakr Ghaznavi rahmatullah alayh, and from his book, and also I have Bada'i' al-Fawaid, one of the books of Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah. He talks a lot about masail, people ask him questions and he gives them answers. Volume 3, page 1065. He says, سألني سائل أيما أفضل حجرة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أو الكعبة? Which is better or of more honor, house of God, Kaaba, or the Hujra, that quarter where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is buried? فقلت إن أردت مجردا الحجرة, and compare that building with Kaaba, of course Kaaba is afdal. Remember, no one lives in Kaaba. God doesn't live inside Kaaba. Now here he comes. وَإِن وَهُوَ فِيهَا. Allahu Akbar, this is amazing. وَإِن وَهُوَ فِيهَا فَلَا وَاللَّهِ وَلَا الْعَرْشِ وَحَمَلَتُهُ وَلَا جَنَّةُ عَدْنٍ وَلَا الْإِفْلَاكُ الدَّائِرَةُ لَأَنَّ بِالْحُجْرَةِ جَسَدًا الْبُزِنَ بِالْكَوْنِ لَا رَجَحَ. Allahu Akbar. This is very big. Ulama were shocked. What did he say? He said, look, if you take it only as a building, yes, no doubt, Kaaba is afdal. But if you look who's in it, and you know that whether it's the arsh, or whether it's the carriers of the arsh, or whether it is the heavens, or whether you weigh him with the heavens and earth, remember that body that lies in there, it will outweigh the skies and the earth. Muhammad Rasulullah. And that is why Shaykh Zubair Ali Zayd, rahimahullah, he just died recently. He was such a strict muhaddith. They used to call him the father of Albani. He was even more strict than Albani in hadith. He was debating with some Qadianis, Ahmadiyya. And Ahmadiyya were boasting because they think Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani, this Nabi Kadhab, they say, our Nabi was in heavens and your Nabi is lying in dirt. Astaghfirullah. A'udhu billah. He answered them in that debate. It was a munadara. They ran off actually. They lost the debate. They ran away from him. But his answer was recorded. He said, do you know that near the day of judgment, this is my third thing that I'm telling you about the maqam of that place where Prophet ﷺ is buried. He said, when the day of judgment comes, Kaaba will be destroyed but by Dhu Suwayqatayn. But that place where Rasulullah is buried will be taken to the heavens. So you are comparing Rasulullah with the fourth heaven? He's going above those heavens. Allahu Akbar. So he gave that. So by no means we are dishonoring the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We honor it, and I believe after house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no other place more honorable than the place where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is buried. This is how I believe. I slightly disagree with Ibn al-Qayyim's philosophy, but subhanAllah, I told you what he said. But despite all this honor of grave of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my brothers and sisters, none of the Sahaba, 100,000 attended his last khutbah. None of them, or the Tabi'een, ever went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's grave and started asking him for help, for taking care of his problems, or seeking things from him. And here I'll give you those few reports that actually cover this important, crucial topic that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was extremely worried about. Salama, Habiba, Sauda radiallahu anha, these are the muhajirat of Islam. They migrated to Habasha, Ethiopia, modern day Ethiopia, or it was, I don't know what was the name at that time. It was Habasha, Abyssinia. I just said it, subhanAllah. In English it's Abyssinia. So Habasha or modern day Ethiopia. They migrated there and they came back when, in Medina, they told Rasulullah something what they saw over there. They said, Rasulullah, we saw a church, it was called Maria, the Kanisa of Maryam, that had pictures, paintings, and statues of Mary. And not just Muslims, actually, the Protestant Reformations also were strictly against putting statues and idols of Mary due to this, what Prophet ﷺ said actually 1400 years ago. He says, may the curse of God be on those who have done that, because that's how they used to make the graves of people first special, then they put erect pictures and paintings, and then it becomes their gods. He says, بَنَوْا عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ مَسْجِدًا وَصَوَّرَهُ وَفِي تِلْكَ الصُّوَرِ أُولَٰئِكَ شِرَارُ الْخَلْقِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. These are worst people on earth. These are the worst people on earth who create this for people. Take them away from God, and instead you start worshipping statues and pictures. And in his last days, my brothers and sisters, during the times of the agonies of death, sakaratul maut, he was covering his face and then uncovering. When he gets hot, he uncovers it. Then he covers it, then he uncovers it. While he's doing that, in that time, this is what we need to know. That what a critical reminder it has to be, that in this condition, Prophet of Allah says, لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْيَهُودِ وَالنَّصَارَى اتَّخَذُوا قُبُورَ أَنْبِيَائِهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. May the wrath of Allah be on those people he didn't say all, among the Jews and Christians who have made the places of their prophets of God as masjid. And this is the hadith that was on your April prayer schedule. Please take a look at it. It was the hadith printed on your prayer schedule. He says, may the curse of Allah be on those people, because they have really turned something else, opposite to the teachings of God. That's the teaching of shaitan. No prophet or messenger of God ever told people to worship them. They told people to worship God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. He said, and Aisha and Abbas, both are the narrators of this hadith. Bukhari 434, 435, 436, 437, they're all in one place. They said Rasulullah was doing this to warn us from this fitna, so that we don't end up doing the same thing. And he made a very special dua that's Muwatta Imam Malik, Musnad ibn Abi Shayba, and Musnad al-Bazzar has it agreed upon, and it's an authentic report. He said, oh Allah, do not make, Allahumma la taj'al qabri watana, or sanam. Oh Allah, do not let my qabr, my grave, become an idol. What is that supposed to mean? Well, it means that whatever you ask God for, if you start expecting the same things from a grave, now that grave is your idol. That grave is your sharik, is your partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what it means. And Imam Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, same Imam who honored the grave of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the way you would never hear from any scholars like that. He says that alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the dua of his Khalil. He accepted, more or less, the translation. He accepted the dua of his Khalil, that alhamdulillah, today there's so many walls and barriers around the qabr of Rasulullah that no one can go to it and worship it and do things that Rasulullah didn't want to happen. Alhamdulillah. Whatever they're doing it, quite far away. It's quite far away. And now, mashallah, there's guards outside who stop you if you are praying to it. He said, no, go there, face Kaaba. Don't face the grave. Subhanallah. And of course, that famous khutbah that you heard that he gave about Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, in the end of that khutbah also, Jundab bin Abdullah radiallahu anhu also narrated that in the end of that khutbah as well, as narrated in Bukhari, he said, again he told them that do not make my grave, listen people carefully, do not make my grave a masjid. Do not make my grave a masjid. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this, فَإِنِّي أَنْهَاكُمْ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. I forbade you very strictly about this. And making grave masjid is basically simply what you do at masjid. You worship Allah, you ask Allah for help, you expect blessings to come on you. If you expect the same from a grave, now you have made a grave as a masjid. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه. Alhamdulillah, as-salatu was-salam ala Rasulillah, amma ba'd. So far you've heard from two different groups, without mentioning names, who are quite paradoxical from one another, as people claim them. Another third group that people revere this person, and inshallah we all revere, we should revere them. Imam Zainul Abidin, rahmatullah alayhi, he is the great grandson of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. he also saw something, and inshallah, if you can convince someone about this, hopefully Allah will guide them by hikmah, inshallah. He saw a man who comes to that hujra, the house of Aisha, where Prophet is buried, and he comes there and he sneaks through a hole from a window, and he does something. Every day he used to come, and he would start making dua. So Imam, the house of Fatima was very close by, so he used to see him. So one day he called him, Zain al-Abidin. His actual name is Ali ibn Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhimus salam, peace be upon them. He said, young man, what are you doing here? He said, well, I come here to give salam. He said, no, but there is something more than this you're doing. He said, let me tell you a hadith that has come to me directly from my great-grandfather. From my father, from his father, and from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Directly in our house. That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لا تتخذوا قبري مسجدا وعيدا. Don't make my qabr as a place of masjid or Eid. Allahu Akbar. Repeated visits and all that. So inshallah, I will end the khutbah here. That there are unfortunately a lot of false reports about visiting the graves that are not true. Some of them are that the dead listen to you, and if you visit the graves of your father and mother, you get the reward of Hajj. May Allah save you and I from all those false things. I am aware of those, alhamdulillah, but none of them is authentic. You go there to give something, not to take something, my brothers and sisters. Remember this. You visit the grave to give something, not to take anything from them. If you start thinking that your dua over there is accepted more than other places, that's another form of shirk. Now you're thinking that what masjid gives you, well, masjid has this effect, that your dua is accepted more at the masjid than other places. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from all kinds of evil, whatever is obvious or hidden. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let us be on Islam and die on Islam. Allahumma rabbana tawaffana muslimin wa alhiqna bis salihin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, help those who are suffering in any form or shape, and heal all the sick. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين. قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم.